Hey viewers, welcome to Scholarly. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Democracy. A state governed under a system of democracy is a controlled organization or group by the majority of its members, or a system of government run by the whole population or all eligible members of state, typically through elected representatives. All of these definitions of democracy, but now with many countries nowadays claiming to have the full freedoms and liberties of democracy, one must ask, do they? Do they really have the freedom promised by true democracy? To get down to the true meaning of democracy, we'll need to find out the very beginning of democracy, the core and the fire of nationwide political success. It all started in the 5th century BC in Athens, where the everyday citizen voted on legislations and certain bills that were to be put into effect. But there were specific rules put in place for you to be able to vote. You would have to be male, an adult, and not from a foreign region. Slaves, as well as women, were unable to vote, as male superiority was common at the time. Throughout the making of democracy during this era, it was constantly interrupted and changed, but eventually the Athenian Association was later revived. But it is currently debated by historians whether they were close to the same democracies today. Throughout the Middle Ages, many countries, states, and empires, from Asia to Europe to Africa, made futile attempts at democracy, but always ended up in the same situation, with only a portion of their citizens voting due to a trend of the era and eras before that, predominantly male men native to their homeland. But, that was how it worked. New Zealand became the first country to allow women to vote, and the US allowing it in 1920. From Athens to a great nation rising from the ashes of a revolutionary war with a world power, and I know you guys know what I'm talking about. They all missed a key part of democracy as we know it, a group run by the majority of its members. All these countries only allowed a portion of their population to vote. On February 3, 1870, in the USA, the 15th Amendment was ratified, granting African men the right to vote. 50 years on, in 1920, women were allowed to vote. Democracy ensures that there is no monarchy, no dictator. The leaders are chosen by all the people, not the government. It grants people rights. It's Victory Day, World War II. It's not as much a victory as it seems though. Women and men cry alike for the dead and the end of suffering. But there's no guarantee of global peace until shortly before the war had ended, when the UN was formed, the second act of national democracy after the failure of the League of Nations, which was formed after the First World War to prevent future wars. The UN became a success and still stands today, with 193 members in total today, and has kept relatively good global peace through negotiation. Notably, they have failed on several occasions to negotiate peace, including the Korean War, Vietnamese Civil War, and several wars current and past in the Middle East, and several more wars. Not to say that this was the UN's fault that these wars happened. What countries claim to be democratic? Well, to ask that question you have to ask, what countries don't claim to be democratic? In this picture, the blue countries represent countries that claim to be democratic, and the red countries are countries that don't claim to be democratic. Wait, what the?
China.
But after doing some very easy digging, it's apparent that this is how it should look like. The red countries are authoritarian countries, meaning countries where the government holds most or all of the power, and political freedoms for the people are limited. The yellow countries are hybrid regimes, which are countries where elections take place, but the government is not considered public business, and as a result, the people know very little about their own governments. And the green countries are countries that are democratic. Gray means there's no data on that country. But if so many countries claim to be democratic, but are obviously not, is democracy flawed? Some economists criticize the vote an irrational voter would make, suggesting that an irrational nation of voters could lead to an irrational leader. Irrational meaning not logical or non-reasonable. James Madison, one of the founding fathers of America himself, stated that direct democracy, or democracies where people decide on everything, are flawed, and that republics are much better in many matters. Which leads on to the next point. What kind of different democracies are there? First of all, there are direct democracies, also called pure democracies, which are democracies in which the citizens vote and govern in every matter. The first example of direct democracy being exercised was in the Greek city-state of Athens. The next type of democracy is called a republic, a democratic republic or a representative republic. This form of democracy is where the people elect politicians which go ahead and vote for them, whether the politician represents their town, county, or country. For example, the president or prime minister. This form of democracy is common through many countries today, and there are so many more types of democracies that it deserves its own video, but we will leave the link in the description if you want to take a look. So democracy, for good or bad, for better or worse, you decide whether you like it or not. But let's just say it's out there. Thanks to Sidechain for the music in our intro. Go check out his channel, link in the description. Thank you for listening to this video from Scholarly. Tell your friends and family about us, and remember the wise words of Benjamin Franklin. Time lost is time never found again, so get learning.